Thank you, Mr. President.
For what purpose does Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Surovell, rise?
Speaking of the motion.
Senator's the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like the senator from Loudoun, I'm doing this for a few women. First of which is my mother. My mother grew up in Vinton, Virginia. 12th generation Virginian. First one in her family to graduate public high school, because they didn't have high school in Franklin County before that. And she was also wanted to go to college. At the time she wanted to go to college, she couldn't go to all the colleges in Virginia. She could only go to Longwood, Mary Washington, and I think one other. James Madison. Madison College. How did I forget that? Thanks, chap. And she couldn't go to UVA because the University of Virginia Board of Visitors didn't think it was appropriate for women. I have a constituent, his name is Phil Hirschkopf. Many of you all might know him. He's an attorney, and Phil litigated Loving versus Virginia. But he also litigated the case that got women into UVA. And he wrote up a little memoir he sent me a few years ago, which had some recollections in it from that litigation, which occurred about 2 years before I was born in 1969. And the rector of UVA, Frank Rogers, who was the name partner at Woods Rogers, Hazel Grove, and Roanoke, testified at deposition about the reasons why they couldn't let women into UVA. And he said they wanted to, but there are all kinds of pressing problems. The most pressing were recreational facilities and what he called leisure facilities. He said, quote, "You must have places where the girls could entertain their dates," close quote. He also complained that women would need separate athletic facilities. He said the dormitory lavatories would have to be changed. Lounges were needed for the girls, as well as places to do laundry. He insisted women were not discriminated against. We just, quote, treat them differently. Rector Rogers also stated that many years when girls went off to college, they had chaperones to go with them and attend dances and were required to stay in approved boarding houses. And he thought special provisions had been made at the women's colleges to deal with this, and that UVA would have to deal with this, and so it would be very difficult. He also concluded his deposition expressing that his feeling that the male students require less responsibility on the moral aspect. He opined that if men wanted to get in trouble, it was not up to the university to chaperone him or mother him, or, to use the crude expression, wet nurse him up until quite recently, until this era of permissiveness had come upon us. We felt that if we took young women to the university, we owed a great deal of chaperonage to them, to the women. He went on to complain, or actually the president of the school then went on to testify that, again, they had to limit admission to UVA because of the facilities. He said they'd have to convert dorms for bathing facilities and toilet facilities. There would have to be areas for the male students to come and call on the female students to pick up their dates. They would need washers, professionally trained personnel in the dormitories supervising the women dormitories, individual shower facilities. And he also said, quote, the women needed areas to be able to prepare snacks. And so this means the need or desire for light kitchen facilities, which would not be available in men's dormitory. Two students will study together, and then the co-ed will need a snack, which they will both enjoy. Folks, this is the world my mother was born into, and it's effectively the world that I was nearly born into, although UVA didn't get into women until a year or two after I was born. But today, I have 4 children. I have one young woman. I don't like calling her that because I still think she's a girl, but she's now 19 and she's a young woman. I have to keep correcting myself. And I have 2 girls. I have a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, and I have a 13-year-old. And with what we're about to do and what they're doing down there and what we're going to do hopefully in a week, this will change the reality forever for my mother, for them, and for 160 million women in the United States of America. And this state, this Commonwealth, led this country. 1776, we adopted the Virginia Declaration of Rights. That Declaration of Rights became the U.S. Bill of Rights when the U.S. Constitution was ratified in 1783. There are 7 busts out there in that chamber of Virginians who led the United States of America. And some of us feel like for about the last century or so, our state has not been out in front in this country like it was when we founded. What we're about to do in this chamber will put us right back in the front and lock down rights for women across the entire United States, and I'm honored to support it.
For what purpose does Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Sasslaw, rise?